Ayushi Kushwaha, Assistant Professor, Amity Law School, Lucknow campus, warmly welcome you all to the Choose to Challenge with the Harbingers of Change on the occasion of International Women's Week. Today with us are four guests who have worked and contributed for the benefit of women, their rights, and emancipation. Truly, they are our inspiration, and it is an opportunity to hear them out. But before we start, I would request Professor Dr. J.P. Yadav sir, Director, Amity Law School, Lucknow campus, to formally welcome our respected guest speakers, dignitaries, faculties, and students so that we can formally begin with the event. Sir.
Thank you very much, Ayushi. Good afternoon to everyone. I, on behalf of Amity Law School, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow campus, would like to welcome Mr. Akhilen Kumar ji for deliberation on this virtual platforms on the occasion of International Women's Day. I extend my warm welcome to Dr. Nilima Singh on this virtual platforms for our deliberations. In the same sequence, I also would like to welcome next speaker, Mrs. Prema P. Singh. And lastly, I also welcome to Mr. Ranjan Singh, Rajiv Ranjan Singh. This is the occasion to discuss, to share the views on International Women's Day. However, it would be celebrated on 8th of the March, but this week is dedicated or devoted to the Women's Week. This time the theme of the International Women's Day, let's of the challenge. All choose to challenge. Now, the challenge cannot be similar across the world. The challenge for the women in developed country is different from the developing country, from the ill-developed countries. So therefore, it is very difficult to find out the challenge for the women. If we are talking about the Indian context, then Indian women faces different types of challenges. The women of elite groups have different type of challenges. The women which are underprivileged, they have different type of challenges. And the women who are living below poverty lines also have a different type of challenges. Fortunately, today we have two of the guests who are running the NGOs and serving the underprivileged women. Hopefully they better understand what type of challenges the women are facing who are living in the below poverty lines or who are underprivileged. The problem of the women across the world is related to their awareness, awakeness, and the literacy rates. Obviously, the developed countries, their women and men have a better opportunity to educate themselves, and they are more aware as compared to the third world countries. So therefore, their challenges are less, up to some respect. But on the other hand, the women who are living in Gulf countries, in Muslim countries, or the countries who are ruled by the Shariat Qanun, such types of women have a different type, and their position is very, very tough so far as challenges is concerned. They have very meager rights with these rights they are living. The position of the women before independence is also not good. However, there was a lot of literature and things are available that the position of the woman in during the Aryan periods or the later Vedic periods were very good. But gradually, with the advent of the intruders, the native peoples, the indigenous peoples, start to hide their women and wealth from the intruders. And this is one of the reasons why is the position of the women deteriorate gradually. The Parda system, education is not given to the women, were started at that times during the invasion of this territory by the foreign invaders. However, after the independence, when we adopt the Indian constitutions, our constitutions make us keep this thing in their minds, and they also consider the position of the women. And therefore, they keep Article 15, Clause 3 as a fundamental right in which they have provided the special provision for the women and childs. No doubt about that, the women are anatomically, physiologically are different from the men. And due to the maternity characters, they go into the back foot in the struggle of life. So just keeping these two things in their minds, our constitutions make us give a special provision for the women and have a special rights under Article 15, Clause 3. The government is always strive to provide the equal opportunity, equality for the women. As a student of law, I can tell you, there was no discrimination on the basis of sex with regard to opportunity, with regard to educations, or with regard to any natural resources utilizations. So on a legal point of view, there was no discrimination and gender are equals. But the reality is different just because of the women are uneducated, particularly in rural areas or in underprivileged class. So the things I just announce at this platform that we have to be think over about the women who are underprivileged, who are not getting a good chance to good study and good opportunities. But at the same times, we also keep in our mind that there are two concepts. We should not be confused in these two concepts. The one is gender equality, the another one is gender similarity. The government is trying to make the laws keeping the gender equality in their minds. But so far as gender similarity is concerned, gender never be similar. Some of the feminist groups, some of the women's rights groups try to equate the concept of gender equality with the gender similarity. Then the problems arises. So we have to be clear in our minds about the gender equality. We should not be equate the gender similarity with the gender equality. Then the issues will arises. With this, once again, I welcome to all the honorable guests on these virtual platforms of Amity Law Schools to celebrate the International Women's Week. Thank you very much to all to spare for your times, and over to Ayushi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to introduce to you our first speaker, Mr. Rajat Rajan Singh, who is a practicing advocate at Allahabad High Court Lucknow bench and who works extensively in the areas of women's rights and undertakes a number of pro bono cases for the same. He has completed his LLB and LLM from Lucknow University and obtained a certificate course and completed the same on rule of law from University of London. He is also the editor-in-chief of Law Trend, a legal news website, which is also our esteemed digital media partner. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Ayushi, for such a generous introduction. First of all, I extend my gratitude to the director of the Amity Law School and Mrs. Anupriya Yadav and other faculty members of the Amity Law School for conducting this very important event on the week of International Women's Day to celebrate the womanhood. As we all know that International Women's Day is celebrated on 8th of March of every year, and it is being celebrated globally to celebrate the cause of empowerment of women and to celebrate the womanhood. I have been contacted by the faculty members to speak on the topic of International Women's Day, especially on the topic of representation of women in judiciary. Though I think that a lady lawyer might have given a different point of view and a wider prospect on this issue, as well as the practical difficulties in the Indian judicial system by a lawyer. But I will try to give my perspective on this issue, and definitely, ma'am, who is on the panel, will enlighten us. So, if we see that it is a very unfortunate irony and a mere hypocrisy of the Indian legal system that the symbol of the judicial system is a blindfolded lady justice who holds a sword and a balance, and she is being represented as a symbol of justice. However, on the contrary, if we look at the facts and figures, we find that in Supreme Court there is 0.05% representation of women in the judgeship, and similarly in the High Court there is less than 12% women judges in the High Courts. Therefore, to understand this topic of representation of women in Indian judiciary, we have to see some facts and figures. So let us start from the top. As I already said, that in the Supreme Court there is 0.05% representation of women in the judgeship, because out of 34 sanctioned strength of the Supreme Court, there are only 2 women judges. That is Justice Indu Malhotra and Justice Indira Banerjee. So, we have seen that India has its first woman president of India, and India also had its first female prime minister of India. But after so many years of promulgation of the constitution and independence, we are still waiting for the first female chief justice of India. So, this was the point of view of the Supreme Court bench point of view, what is happening in the bench. Now, if we come to the bar, in Supreme Court, there are 403 senior advocates who are designated by the Supreme Court. But out of these 403 senior advocates, only 17 are women. And this shows that how inappropriately the women are being represented in the top court of this country. Now let us come to the high courts. In all the high courts, we have 1079 sanctioned strength of judges, and out of this 1079 sanctioned strength, there are only 78 women judges. Now, the maximum number of women judges are in Punjab and Haryana High Court, that is 11, and that is followed by Madras High Court with 9 women judges, and thereafter comes the Delhi High Court that has 8 women judges. But the surprising factor here is that there are 6 high courts which don't have a single woman judge. These are Tripura, Meghalaya, Manipur, Uttarakhand, Patna and Telangana. They don't have a single woman judge in the High Court. Now, these facts and figures of the Supreme Court and High Court, if we look at and compare it, and we are not taking the facts and figures of the lower judiciary because there is no actual data available with the government about the representation of women or actual number of women judges in the lower judiciary. So if we see this, we can fairly say that there is complete imbalance in the representation of women in Indian judicial system, because it took us almost 40 years to have first female judge, who was Justice Fatima Bibi, and thereafter took another 28 years to have a female judge in the Supreme Court who was directly appointed from the bar. The importance of women in Indian judicial system or any judicial system can be ascertained from this fact that the landmark judgment of Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan was delivered by none other than Justice Sujata Manohar. Justice Sujata Manohar gave sexual harassment at workplace a legal sanction. The Supreme Court framed exhaustive guidelines to be followed by all the workplaces in the country to prevent the sexual harassment of women. This judgment has been treated and is being treated and will always be treated as a landmark judgment in the field of women empowerment in India. Now, if we come to another aspect, I think women at all levels of judiciary, I think the representation of women in all levels of judiciary are critical for handling certain issues that may have social and political ramifications. Now the question is why it is important to have adequate representation of women in Indian judicial system. To my understanding, there are two very important aspects. The first is that inadequate representation of women could aggravate the biasness in the judicial system. It is true that howsoever a male judge is open-minded or has a feminist approach, but he can never fill the shoes of a woman judge. He can never think like a woman judge. He can never have an approach like a woman judge. So it is important to have women in our Indian judicial system. Secondly, it is considered that the judicial system or judges or the bench represents the society and it is there to safeguard the interest of the society. Therefore, if there is lack of representation of women in our judicial system, in our high courts, in our Supreme Courts, then it raises a issue of legitimacy on courts as to the representation of society, because it does not truly represent the society, as the 50% of the population is not being given due representation in our Indian judicial system. Therefore, what we can do to overcome this situation? In order to overcome this problem, I think the government and the law schools have to focus on gender sensitization. Recently, when a case was argued before the Honorable Supreme Court, the Attorney General of India, K.K. Venugopal, stressed upon this fact that there is lack of gender sensitization in Indian judicial system because there is lack of representation of women in Indian judicial system. As soon as we have more number of women judges, the issues which are directly related to the women and child also can be more effectively addressed. Therefore, first of all, the law schools have to implement the topic of gender sensitization in their curriculum to make the students aware about this issue from the very beginning. And another aspect is that giving due representation to the women in any judicial, executive or legislature system, it is not some kind of a favor or a reservation, but in fact it is their right to get the same. It is their right to be represented in that particular community, in that particular sector, and they cannot be deprived of their right, which is not only a fundamental right but a basic human right. And I wish that in future there will be changes by the government, there will be changes by the collegium system, there will be changes in the Supreme Court and High Court, and more number of women judges will be there, more number of women will join this profession as a lawyer to represent the 50% of the population of this country, of this world. In the end, I wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. And I can conclude by saying that there is no tool for development more effective than empowerment of a woman. Therefore, everyone has to strive forward and make sure that the Indian judicial system or the other systems connected with executive or legislature have due representation of women. Only then we can strive towards a developed nation. Thank you. Thank you, Ayushi.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to introduce Miss Renu D. Singh. She's an advocate and has worked tirelessly in the area of emancipation of women, especially those in the low socioeconomic background. She has founded a number of organizations, including the Samadhan Dalit Women Legal Helpline and One Stop Crisis Intervention Center in Dehradun, which is a shelter home for 50 women. And she has been serving Dalit women for absolutely free for more than 40 years. Ma'am?
Thank you very much, Ayushi. Thanks
welcome, ma'am.
for the introduction, and my salutations to Professor Dr. J.P. Yadavji to invite me for this event. This is very important event for me, just like any other woman. And I also would like to say thanks to Anupriya ji, Jyotsna ji, Niharika Verma, Ayushi, I'm already thankful to you, and Adya Pandey ji, and my previous speaker, brilliant speaker, Rajat ji. This is, he has already pointed out so many things. Since I am asked to speak about the challenges which I had been facing as a woman and during entire my 40 years, that is 4 long decades of my role as social activist and also as an advocate and lawyer. I am always very focused and specifically in the field of gender. So I'd been always working, and I always knew that I have to work for gender only, and that is also, yes, the gender related issues are multiple issues. It's not one issue which we can deal with. The biggest global issue to do with gender is gender violence, gender-based violence, which also is called JBV. And the convention which United Nations had in mid-90s in Beijing, China, that was known as CEDAW, clearly addressed these issues, and it was especially for women issues, gender-related issues. And globally, we concluded this convention with a slogan that is "Women rights are human rights," and that is very true. I don't think any society, any country, or this globe can really grow or develop equitably for the especially for half the population of the globe, women, if she is not included. So for any kind of inclusive development, we need to include women, and we need to assure her participation, that also active participation. Now, when I started my work 40 years ago, situations were more tougher than what we have today. The challenges were also much more, you can say, tough. It was not easy for any woman to work in the field of gender. And since I chose from day one, I chose to work to see to it that how can we prevent the sexual violence against women on the globe. And I wanted to work from grassroots level, and also wanted to bring certain changes at policy level, and wanted to see that women's access upon criminal justice system and social justice system is 100% easy, and it has to be direct. So if a common woman, whom we call Dalit women, oppressed women, that is any woman who is not able to protect her own fundamental rights, and somehow she is oppressed and her rights are being infringed upon by anyone, especially I would here address the women, those who are victim or survivors of sexual violence in the society. It's very difficult for them to raise their voice and to see to it that the justice is delivered to them. It's very difficult. Their journey is even today not easy. So 40 years ago, it was really next to impossible for any woman. If once she was violated, if once she was victimized sexually, very difficult, because society used to ostracize such women. And when I started my helpline and my organization, Samadhan Helpline, it was specially for Dalit women, oppressed women, and we were handling mainly the cases of gang rapes. And of course, I started it from Lucknow and Uttar Pradesh, and that time Uttarakhand was part of Uttar Pradesh, so we were also very actively working here at Uttarakhand also. And then we started growing up, and it was not very easy because this word rape is totally tabooed. Even today, people don't feel like calling this word. And those days, sexual violence, word sexual, people never used to welcome us whenever we used for on any platforms. First of all, there were very limited platforms for us to raise our voice. Today we have social media and so many other things we can go and raise our voice, but that time it wasn't so easy. So first thing, the people, the women like us, those who had been working in the field of gender and field of prevention of sexual violence, mainly we were being ostracized. Whenever we used to rescue a woman or take her case to the court of law, our treatment by the society and even by the fraternity was not that of that level. I mean to say, the acceptance was not there, and they used to call us names. Even they used to call us names, and we were being sometimes we were being treated worse than a rapist could have been. Now, a rapist still had a face in the society, but the women, those who were raped, or the lawyers, especially counselors like us, the helplines like us, we were given very bad treatment. And it's true to say, without being any without being negative, that till 2013, till the Nirbhaya case happened, we were treated in a very negative way, even by the fraternity in the courts. And since Samadhan had a different concept of working, which I always cherished since I started this organization, that all the girls, those who were rescued by us, and we were grooming them as mainstream lawyers and advocates by sending them to best of law schools and colleges to come out as a lawyer, and then used to get them registered with the bar associations. So this is how this was now I feel, when I look back, I feel that this wasn't so easy. My journey itself was not so easy. And today, yes, today we are most successful organization, and myself, I can say that I'm also successful because I could see and I could materialize the things which I always cherished as my dream and my ambition, to see more and more women to get empowered in a sustainable way. Because when we talk of empowerment, the most important thing is whether the woman is getting all the stakes which are promised by the Constitution of India to women. Are they able to access them? Same thing happens with the legal rights and legal awareness. Everyone is there. A lot of good NGOs are working already, and government is also putting maximum efforts to see to it that the gender is being informed and they are being aware about the legal rights. But just being aware about legal rights does not lead to any end. The thing is whether they have access upon criminal justice system. That is even today is not so easy. But comparing to those days, 30-35 years ago, what the situations were, today I think they have a voice. And comparatively, I'm telling that today is better situation, because we have social media, we have more and more awareness in the society, especially aware women. More and more women are being aware, and we have a lot of law schools where the legal education is not limited to classroom. Like for example, Amity University itself, they are sending their students for internships, and every year I receive a lot of students. We are affiliated with 40 Indian universities and 11 Western universities. They send their students of law, mass communication, clinical psychology, and social works and human rights to our center here in Dehradun. And I can see the difference because this year it is winter internship going on, and the 34th internship is there. And this 34th winter internship, I can see the difference. I can easily find it that nowadays students are more aware, and when we talk about gender, even the boys, even the males, they have very good response and sensitivity. They are getting more and more sensitized. So we thought that how my challenge was how to reach the women, those who need us. So we started legal mobile clinics, and now we have 2 legal mobile clinics. One is working in the area of Uttar Pradesh, wherever there is high reporting and low reporting. We take care, we see to it that wherever there is more reporting through NCRB data, we check where there is more crime, and where there is no reporting, that is the main point. We think that we have to focus there, because if there is no reporting of sexual violence, means it doesn't mean that there is no sexual violence happening. That means the woman is not able to reach, not able to knock the doors, not able to access the law. So that is how we reach these women, and these 2 legal mobile clinics are totally being managed by the survivors themselves. Our survivors of at our center and the other places, all these survivors are being trained as paralegal volunteers, while they are also pursuing their studies as law student. And once they finish their law graduation, then we get them registered as lawyers. To our, if you say, achievement, 42 survivors are already qualified as magistrates, and they are sitting in the courts of law at various places in India. And more than 5,000 women from in last 40 years have come out as best of lawyers and advocates in the court of law. So this achievement of ours is not, I would not take the credit like that, because the credit goes to these brave hearts, these women, those who trusted us, those who were so sure that life is still there, and those who knew that they would also live with dignity, and just an accident or a crime which took place on them, and they were being victimized as from gang rape or other sexual violence and other crimes. That doesn't mean their life is stopped, or that does not mean that they lost their dignity. I give the full credit to them, because they trusted in themselves, they had confidence in themselves. And then, yes, Samadhan Helpline, we believe in one thing, that the moment case is reported, the woman comes, we make sure that now she should not be left alone. Now is the time when she should get all the normal things which any other woman is having in the society for development. So that is what we make sure. Here we have a center for 50 women, and these women, those who come here, we never categorize them. We never ask, only initially during the counseling we talk about their cases and whatever, but the rest of the time totally is given for their development, psychological support, their we have to see that their health is fine, and their emotional health. We work a lot, because these women come as totally deconstructed women, and then we have to reconstruct them as an empowered woman. Here I also would like to add that all our women now we are targeting to see to it that our representation in the parliament, that is our political participation, and in the Parliament of India, we need 50% of seats for women to sit there, because 33%, which still is lying in the form of bill, and still it has not been mobilized. I think that is not fair. If we want to talk about gender, if we want to talk about equity, and we want to talk about equality, then we need 50% seats there, and for which we have to prepare from Panchayat level only. So Panchayat Raj Act is also more and more women need to be sensitized and aware about Panchayat Raj system. and see to it that any woman's and gender's journey from panchayats to um, parliament, that we have to make sure that we reach there and we take 50% of seats, and that is the only way Indian democracy can really see their women as equal partners in all the development process. Democratic process is incomplete without our being there at the parliament. So right now, Samadhan is also seeing to it that all the women, those who are with us, more than 7,000 NGOs are connected to us, and we are seeing to it that we train them, aware them, and equip them through the capacity building programs, and those are all free of cost. And we want to see that how these women are going to first learn the lessons of fine polity from sitting at Panchayat Raj level and panchayats, and Gram Panchayats, Kshetra Panchayats, and Nagar Panchayats. Everywhere we want to see that 50% seats are given. And in Uttarakhand, we have already done it. We have already achieved it. Now we have all our panchayats, 50% women are already sitting here. It is yet to be achieved in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Jharkhand, for example. So these are the places where we are working, because we are working all India. My challenge, if you say as a lady, as a woman, I was lucky enough to have a very strong family to support me with the education. So when I started this activism, I was only 15 years old. And then it took me 3 to 5 years to get myself groomed and get myself focused. But from day one, I knew that I would be working pro bono. If I ever become lawyer and advocate, I would be working pro bono. And today, I can say that I have really, really used my degree and my designation of an advocate working pro bono for the people, for the women, those who really needed me. And even today, we are doing that. And I was focused from day one. I chose to be an activist by choice, not by chance. I am an activist, lawyer, and advocate by choice, not by chance. And working pro bono gives me immense satisfaction. And that is how the Samadhan Helpline also has got the similar spirit. So all our team members, all our women, those who are here either studying as in survivors, they are studying law, or those who are doing internship with us, they all have got the same spirit that they would like to serve more and more women and more needy people pro bono as lawyers and advocates. And all my girls are already doing that. So this is a big achievement, and I think now things are not that difficult. After J.S. Verma's committee, we came out with Nirbhaya laws. A lot of changes took place in Evidence Act and other, and yes, workplace also we have very good laws now. We can really protect and prevent any crime to happen on women, especially the sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, or sexual violence. Now comes Samadhan Helpline. In our crisis center, we make sure that all the genders are presented here equitably. So we allow men interns also. And the interns, those who are from LGBT community, we welcome them also to work with us. And we do camps in various areas. Now, Uttarakhand, we are covering 122 tehsils. Initially, when we used to talk about rape and sexual violence, we were not welcome by people. But slowly, the awareness took place, and now more and more women. Last 10 years, it's much better than before. And I'm very optimistic about future, because when I look back 30, 40 years ago, it was very different India. It was very different Asia. I, as a young girl, I studied in Lucknow University. I did my law from there, and I did my post-graduation in English literature also from Lucknow University. And those days, how people were taking independent women, in what way that viewpoint is really changed, because I was the only woman teenage girl, you can say, in Lucknow those days, who used to drive heavy mobike. I had a mobike, It was a YesD, and the number of my mobile used to be UTC 5885, and I used to drive it, and people used to really. Some people used to laugh, and some people used to feel amazed. How come a girl she drives this or that? So those days, even going out alone was not that common. But yes, Lucknow always been the city of aware people. We had a different environment in university, and I graduated from Lucknow Christian College, which again was a very good college. And there also I was the first woman student, and then I joined Lucknow University. My way of thinking about gender and law, initially people used to get shocked when I used to speak about LGBT those days. When I used to go and talk to LGBT community openly, I used to talk to them. I used to go and sit with them and share their ideas and share their experience of gender violence, especially gender-based violence. So this is a beautiful journey. I enjoyed, and I think this was the best thing in my life I could do, both as a citizen of India and global citizen. And profession comes after that. Primarily, I enjoy being a woman. That is most important for me. I love being a woman, and in next life also, as many lives I would be coming back to this universe, I would always love to be a woman. And another thing what I want to see, now I'm going to be 60 very soon. So I think that it's time when I should see that 50% women are sitting in the Parliament of India, and 50% judges are sitting in the courts of law all over, Supreme Court and High Courts, and also at session level. So that would be the dream, and I wish my girls could do that, could achieve that. That would be the best gift. And rest, what I can now say as a message to women, especially to girls, and especially to the ladies, those who are studying law, please make sure that whenever you complete your education and you start as a professional in the court of law, see to it that you choose to give your pro bono services to women clients, especially those who need us. And another thing is important, that all the students of MET, please try and see if some of you could go and work also as paralegal volunteers with DLSA, Lucknow District Legal Service Authority. Would be really lucky enough if students from MET, because MET students have got good academics, and ethics wise also I find them much better than any other organization. Miss Niharika had interned with us at our center, so she knows we work on values. And I wish all the best to all the people, and the next speakers also I would love to listen. And thank you so much, Ayushi. Thank you, Niharika. And once again, thanks, Dr. JP Yadavji. It's wonderful, really, being at this platform. So if you have any question, you can ask me.
Ma'am, we will come with that apart later on. We would like to move to the next speaker. However, thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful words, and we hope that women get rightfully what they deserve. I would now invite Dr. Neelam Singh, medical practitioner and a member of the Supreme Court monitored National Inspection and Monitoring Committee, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques. Ma'am is secretary at Vatsalya, which has been instrumental in providing technical support primarily related to health of mother and child, and advocates social health issues at the community level. Her prime focus has been to curb female feticide by advocating the strict implementation of Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act 1994. Ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ayushi. And I would like to say thanks to Professor J.P. Yadav for organizing such wonderful, with the team of ladies. I can see that all ladies are there who are the organizers. So it's very wonderful that I got an opportunity on this occasion to be with all of you. So I think I know that all the speakers, I'm so impressed with when Mr. Rajan gave us the account of participation of women in legal system. And Madam Renu, I'm really impressed with your work. And I would definitely, because I have been going to Uttarakhand, I also graduated